Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard here this evening as we get set up to discuss what's to come against the Boston Bruins. Obviously, the Oilers not in action this evening. We'll see what happens against those Boston Bruins as the road swing goes out east. But for the Oilers, obviously, a productive little bit of results over the course of the weekend. It keeps us in pace with the LA Kings and the Vegas Golden Knights for those top three spots in the Pacific Division, and life at the moment is looking pretty good, even with Jeff Skinner. We'll have more on that in a matter of moments, but if you are new to the channel, friends, consider hitting that subscribe button here this evening. Would love to have you along. We're into January now. The road only gets tougher for the Oilers, and this is usually the time of year where they really start putting up big results, and obviously the Oilers find themselves on a good little heater here again, so hopefully things continue to roll and the Oilers find a way to keep momentum going here throughout the month of January. I believe the stat is the Oilers have not lost a game in the month of January since 2023. That's pretty stellar if you ask me as an Edmonton Oilers fan. We all remember what happened last time out there in January as we get set for this one here in what is now, yes indeed, January 2025. Today we have some new lines courtesy of Chris Knobloch and the Edmonton Oilers head coaching staff. Of course, things don't really look like they changed too much, did they? Except for you will notice again, Derek Ryan back out of the lineup, Jeff Skinner taking over on the third line, Corey Perry on the fourth line after Knobloch said, hey, he's not going to be out long. Well, he wasn't. He'll be back in by the looks of it unless somebody's out sick against Boston here on the next game. Now you got Perry, Janmark, Kapanen, Skinner, Henrique, Hyman. Those are really the only changes. For Kapanen as well today, I want to mention his piece with Mark Spector. Make sure you go check that out. A lot of compliments that maybe over the past 15, 20 years haven't applied to the Edmonton Oilers, but what we've built here since Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl decided, you know what, that couple of years out of the playoffs ain't too cool. Let's go win a whole bunch. The Oilers have been one of the most dynamic playoff teams year in, year out since basically really getting shut down in that first round against the Winnipeg Jets back in the bubble year. So we'll see what happens here tonight, tomorrow against the Boston Bruins. But you see here for the Oilers at Monday's practice, again, the lines, I kind of flashed them quickly. I want you to take a look at that. What I will transition to tell you now is simply the Oilers need to make a decision on Derek Ryan. The thing is, we went through this similar situation, an older centerman, right-hand shot that's been more so transitioned to the wing as the seasons go on in later stages of his career. Sounds all too familiar for a team that had Sam Gagner last year. And as Sam Gagner kind of found his way out of the Oilers lineup as the season went on, and obviously never found a way into the NHL playoffs, and Derek Ryan kind of trickled out of the lineup as well during the playoffs and the late regular season, one would still believe, and I'm sorry, I know maybe I'm going to take heat for continually talking about Nick Bjugstad, but again, a guy with size, some upside skill, and you know what, I'm not sitting here trashing Derek Ryan, but I think pretty much anyone that you fill a right-hand shot slot with in that bottom six is going to be an upgrade on Derek Ryan at this point of his career in a late season push into the playoffs. And whether Derek Ryan is ultimately casualty to being moved out of the lineup for an upgrade or just simply to allow room for Evander Kane when he does ultimately return, and then, I don't know, you figure out what to do with Jeff Skinner, and then suddenly you have a 13th guy sitting around from Bakersfield, and Derek Ryan is no longer, no longer here. I guess that could be an option. Obviously, we know that Noah Philp and Matt Savoie are both trajectory sometime here over the next few months, right? January, late January, early February, mid-February, as we get towards the trade deadline. Expect to see both Noah Philp and Matt Savoie at least get a good cup of coffee here in the NHL, just as the Oilers make final decisions on who and what they have to upgrade on at the NHL trade deadline as well. It's kind of shocking, but not shocking to see Josh Brown up here on this Eastern Conference road trip. The Oilers have a history of calling up the extra man during a road trip out east. Again, I think Josh Brown is the default option at this point. The Oilers kind of dummy-proofed that. Everyone's sitting here all critical about the Oilers signing Josh Brown to that $1 million deal. Again, Daryl Cates is not hurting for money. We know that. And the reason that we do this is because at $1 million in 3 years plus, nobody's looking to claim Josh Brown off the waiver wire. And so we're always available to have a seventh defenseman on the road trip, night in, night out, if we so choose. And obviously Travis Dermott hung around for a little while, but now that spot, fully considering all the moves since, belongs to Josh Brown. There are a couple defensemen on the AHL Bakersfield Condors, namely Philp and a couple others that could alternate that position if Bako wants to go a different route. And obviously Keith Gretzky and Stan Bowman have a couple roster construction problems to solve as the season gets towards the playoffs. But for right now, obviously you're never going to mind having Josh Brown as an option in case of injury or illness on a road trip, especially out east, where there might be some tougher customers in the league than maybe some of the teams you're facing here closer to home. So, namely, you know who I'm talking about. Hopefully we don't have to play him because, again, he runs around a little bit. But again, for the Oilers, like I'm saying, the big puzzle here, and we're starting to hear the rumblings about changes coming to the roster sooner than later. Apologies, still stuffed up. With the Bakersfield Condors call-ups. But again, that will just affect kind of what we do at the NHL trade deadline. I will tell you, if you're saying that Noah Philp should be the starting fourth-line center for the Oilers in the playoffs, I think now we've come back full circle. 5 years ago, we didn't have enough experience to win the Stanley Cup, and now 5 years later, we're too old to win the Stanley Cup, so we need to have raw rookies performing lights out in the playoffs. See, you know what? I've done this long enough to know how this goes. But for the Oilers right now, the key is obviously now's the time you kind of build up these wins. The Oilers have racked up wins like crazy. I think 14-3 or something for the last 18 games. It's something absolutely banana towns at this point for the Edmonton Oilers, who just continue to climb win after win. Now 24-12-3. So they have 27 games with points, 12 without. And really, you've got Alec Regula coming back on the back end at some point here. I know he's kind of a question mark, and every update just doesn't seem to be congruent. But you look at the goaltending has solved itself. Both goaltenders with an .898 and somewhere below .280, which is pretty solid. Both goalies plus .500 on the season. You see the depth scoring is starting to step up for the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, the lowest scoring out of the regulars is Ty Emberson and Derek Ryan with 5 points. Again, why the Oilers have to make a decision sometime soon on Derek Ryan, and I feel likely it is coming. Troy Stecher with 6 points on the back end, and then you got Kasperi Kapanen in half as much time as anyone else with 6 points. But other than that, the Oilers' depth scoring over the past 2 weeks has really stepped up. We know that. Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, Brown, Nurse, Podkolzin, Jeff Skinner adding a couple, same with Matthias Janmark, and then Victor Arvidsson popping up to 11 points in 24 games is a nice welcome thing to see as well. So for the Oilers, things are starting to come together, which means, you know, generally when things are going too well, you do actually end up having to experiment just to figure out what exactly this team needs to go up over top of that final hill that is winning a Stanley Cup in June. Friends, thanks for being aboard. I am up on out of here. Enjoy your evenings. We'll talk to you either in the morning if I have something to say tonight later on, or sometime tomorrow as we get set up for them Boston Bruins. I am up on out of here.